And joining us now with more on the World Jewish Congress's role in strengthening the ties between Israel and the diaspora, especially among the young leaders of tomorrow, is Daniel Radomski, head of the World Jewish Congress Strategy and Programs and Executive Director of the WJC Jewish Diplomatic Corps. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about the Jewish Leadership Bridge for the Future. You know, your program to strengthen ties between Israel and the diaspora, especially among the younger leaders. What have been some of the key outcomes and efforts so far, and how do they inform the WJC strategies for future engagement and leadership development, sort of within the global Jewish community?
So we launched this bridge for the future just before October 7th. So let's us remember that even prior, we did have a challenge. It seems like it's a long time ago, but we did have a challenge in terms of unity within the Jewish people, unity between the diaspora and Israel. So one of the birthday gifts, if I can call it that, of the World Jewish Congress, as we are connecting and protecting Jewish communities worldwide, including, of course, the United States and Israel, but another 103 communities in addition to that, was to do the bridge. Now, what was the bridge? We gathered especially the younger leaders, because in terms of our president, Ronald Lauder, his focus is on developing the next generation, or sometimes even the current generation of leaders, because they are the ones that will inherit some of these problems. And they'll need to work on them, not only for 5-10 years, but maybe for 20-30 years. So we got a delegation together of about 100 Jewish leaders from abroad, from about 60 countries, and together with the Reut Institute, who has a coalition of peoplehood here in Israel, of civil society, we brought them together under the auspices of President Herzog, and this was, again, prior to October 7th, to speak about some of the challenges that we have together, and most importantly, to sit together in roundtable discussions from the left to the right, from the diaspora to Israel, to see how are we going to be part of the solutions that we need to develop together. And it was very concrete. So just to sit and have a dialogue is important, but also out of this conversation came around 50 concrete suggestions in terms of what the State of Israel can do, what the diaspora can do, and how we can work together in terms of uniting under a common umbrella.
And so, how do you envision the role of young Jewish leaders, in bridging these gaps between Israel and the diaspora, particularly, I would say, in the context of sort of the challenges and changes that we've seen since October 7th?
So if anybody required any additional information about the fact that we have to stand united because our challenges are united, unfortunately, the disastrous events of October 7th demonstrated that with all due clarity. What's happening today, I live in New York City, what's happening on university campuses today, and what's happening here in Israel, we're just wrapping a delegation under the missions that we've been launching in the period after October 7th, bringing people here to look at what's happening and also to interact with people. Especially the younger generation have an obligation to work together. And that's what we see here today. So we brought a delegation and we took them down south to see Be'eri and to see some of the horrendous events. But perhaps in addition to that, we took them to Beersheba, where we did a collaboration with the Jewish National Fund USA and with the Lauder Employment Center, so 3 organizations under the auspices of President Lauder. We brought young people together, again from abroad, but specifically with the younger leaders of the South. And in addition to respecting them, to hearing the stories, to understanding more how we need to stand united, they sat together, and it was a beautiful thing to see. They sat together on round tables, and they were discussing how we can also start working on concrete projects together. So in addition to understanding each other, just opening that door to see how can we work together. We have a common faith and we have a common fate, and that's what we need to demonstrate in something very concrete. So that's what happened in addition to the mission, looking at what's happening in Israel, making the connection to abroad, but importantly, working together for the future.
And so how does the World Jewish Congress see its role in sort of continuing to ensure a future for the Jewish people to know each other and speak, as you just said, sort of in one global Jewish voice?
It's interesting. For us, the most important part of that sentence is the together part, because we know we are a super convener of Jewish communities worldwide. And when we do that, we also know that what most likely will have an effect in terms of combating prejudice and antisemitism abroad what will have a real effect is when people present their own personal perspectives. You have many different types of Jews, you have many different types of communities. Certain items in terms of solidarity with Israel at this time, in terms of ensuring that this will be a generation where our past will not be our children's future in terms of prejudice and atrocities, it is really upon ourselves to be informed, to work together. We say that when you have dialogue, that leads to understanding and that leads to unity, and that's what we're all about.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much for coming and speaking with us today and sharing this very important message of unity.
Thank you very much.